this first one, we're going to write out the ordered pair. This is 0, and then our first ordered pair. So we have 0, 6, we have 0, 12, and we have 0, 18. Again, our ordered pair is always just x comma y. So we are only looking at the x values. It is a function if no x repeats. So when I look at this one, I can see my x value does repeat. So what that means is it's not a function. And the reason is because our x value repeats. So that should help you with the first two. Again, when you go to do number 2, write out the ordered pairs. This is the most important part so that you can see. So this is 0, 6, 0, 12. Now, you can keep going, 4, 6, but right away I notice my x comma y. I wrote the first two from this mapping diagram. I can clearly see I have a 0 in the x and another 0. So I have an x that repeats. So remember what we talked about. If it's a function, the x doesn't repeat. So when the x repeats, that means it's not a function. So this should help you with 1 and 2. So you will pause this video and try to complete these on your own. All right, so you should have done 1A and 1B on your own. Now this is the second part. Our rule still stands. We want to look at which relation is a function. So remember, when something is a function, that means all the x values are different. So the x values don't repeat. So we're going to just look at each one of these and look at the x's. So when I look at A, I'm just going to show you how to do one of these. I'm going to look at the x values. Those are x comma y, x comma y. What I notice right away is I have a 2, a 2, and a 2. Well, those repeat, which means these are not a function. So you're going to go through the rest of these and look for the one that is a function. We want one that has a different x value for each one. You cannot have things that repeat. So pause this and do number 2. Number 3. This one's asking a different question. It says, which one's not a function? Remember, not a function. When it's not a function, the x values, they actually do repeat. So you're just looking for one here when you go through the x's. We're only looking at x's. You want ones that repeat. The x's that you have x values that are the same. So I have a 5, a 6, and a 7. Oh, that one is a function. So this one is a function. So I know that's not the answer. I'm looking for the one that is not a function, meaning I'm looking for one where the x values are the same or they repeat. They're the same value. So you'll pause yours and make sure that you get number 3 done. Okay, the last one, we're just looking at a graph and we're going to find the missing coordinate of this function. It's a y coordinate we're looking for. So if I look, I have the -2, -1. That's right here, -2, -1. The next ordered pair is right here. All you have to do is tell me what that x comma y is. Well, it tells you it is 0, right? We go over 0, and how many do we go up? So if I go 0, and then I look at this, I'm going to look closer. It's in between 0, which is right here, and 2. So you just have to tell me what's in between 0 and 2, and that's your missing coordinate. So I want you to pause that and do number 4. All right, you should be done with the first part of the quiz because you've paused and you've looked at all these. When I printed this, excuse that how it's messed up. Your quiz should look different. It should not be overprinted. But you should have these values here. So this is the back of the quiz. This is our 6.2. So you want to have your 6.2 note sheets out. And then we're going to go over how to do these. So I did this one in class with you guys right before you took the quiz. So to find our m, I told you guys we're going to have y equals mx. We're just going to find the m. To find our m, we just look at what is the change in y. So we look at our y values and we say, what is that changing by? And we put that number over, that's the change in y. We put that number over the change in x. So what is our x values changing by? And then we just simplify. And we can pop that number right in there to the m. So if I look at this one, I can see my y's should be changing by a certain number. Look here, this is the change in y. What's happening each time? We're either adding or subtracting. So find this number, put it on top, and then you look at the x's. What's this changing by? We're either adding or subtracting. Find that number, put it on the bottom, and simplify. And then that's the number that goes in to your equation. Y equals, just fill in that number for your m, and you have an equation. Do that, pause the video, and then I want you to do that. Okay, so you're unpausing the video. Now, we're on the next two, which are writing function rules, which is just an equation. So you're going to have y equals maybe mx plus b. You might have y equals x plus something. You might have y equals something minus x. And you also might have the other one, which is just y equals m times x. So those are all our formats, right? We've talked about that. That's on our note sheet. It's going to look something like that. So we just need to read the words and put them into one of the formats. So when I read this, we know that the output is, that's our y equals. I gave that to you on every single one. Next, we have to look at the next words. 2 less than. And remember, I told you guys, and on your note sheets, this is the special case. So it's special when you see less than or subtraction, right? What that means is it needs to look like the special case is going to be y equals x minus whatever the number is. This is our special case. This is the one in our note sheet too we called special. So if we see the less than, this part comes at the end. We'll see minus whatever it says. So looking here, this is going to come at the end. 2 less than. We write that as minus 2. And then the last part, we always are going to have the output, which is x. That's going to be somewhere in our equation. So you're just going to write the equation that looks like this special case here with the right numbers. It has to be in this form that's right here in red. So pause that and go ahead and try to do this one. Okay, we now are going to look at the next one, which is more straightforward. It goes with the format that we've already used up there. So this one is going to be a y equals something x, and then plus or minus something else. So you're going to read the words. The output is, that's what I already gave you. That's our y equals. So I already gave you that part. You are going to read the rest. 4 more than. Well, 4 more than means plus 4 or 4 plus. You can write it either way. Because the plus, remember, from our commutative property, it doesn't matter how we write it. And then 2 times the input. Remember, when we see times, that's where you smush the number and the x together. We no longer write like 2 dot x or 2 with the times symbol and x. We write it really close together. So if it was, for example, here's an example, to write 5 times the input, I'd write 5x. That means 5 times the input. So you're going to go ahead and read, figure out the last part where it says 2 times the input, and you're going to write that in the equation. So what goes here? And then we already know what comes at the end. We wrote that there in blue. So you'll fill that part in for the equation. So pause your video and try that one. It looks like the format over here in green. It should look something like that. All right, you should unpause it. Now we're going to look at the last few of them. There's 3 of them. 9 and 10 are done in one way because it gives you the equation and it tells you one of the x values. So you're just evaluating or plugging in the x. The important part is we know how to read this. This says y equals 5 times whatever x is minus 3. So when I write out the work, y equals 5 times whatever x is. I'm going to use the parentheses because that means times, and then minus 3. So the part is, what is our x? What am I going to do? I'm going to take 5 times, and then I'll give you a hint here. I tell you what x is, so you plug it into this equation. And this one is a little bit simpler. There's no solving other than using your calculator. You take 5 times whatever the new x value is. You're going to plug that work in yourself, minus 3. And a hint, I gave you the x up here, so plug it in and then use your calculator. 6 is done the same way. This should say, it did not print correctly, so this one says x, I believe, over 2. So when you plugged 10 in, you're going to do the same thing. It gives you the value for, oops, sorry about that. It gives you the value for the, for the x value. So what you're going to do then is you're going to plug the 24 into where the x is at. So it will be y equals whatever x is divided by 2, and then you add 6. So that's how you show your work. You write your work underneath here and you show it that way. And then you can use your calculator to find the answer. So I want you to pause and do 9 and 10 because they're very similar. You're just plugging in a number and your calculator is doing the work. Okay, so here's our last part. Number 11 is a little bit different. And I gave you the hint. So instead of giving you the x, I give you the y, and you have to solve a 2-step equation. So 2-step equation should be a review for solving, and we have notes on that on our note sheet, but just in case, I'll go over them really quickly. So first, we get rid of addition or subtraction. And then we get rid of the multiplication or division. So this is one that's different, so we plug this into where our y is at instead. So I was showing you guys, so we can do 12 equals 2x plus 4. This is where then I've showed you guys how we draw our line in. We're going to get rid of the number that's by itself by adding or subtracting. So you always do the opposite. And then you bring that to the other side. And then the last part is you get rid of, so that's our adding or subtracting. I'll color code that there. And then it should then something disappears on this side over here, and we're left with just the 2x. So then we divide to get rid of it, and then it should be solved. If it helps, some of you guys were asking, can you set it up by flipping it around and do 2x plus 4 equals 12? Just because we're used to seeing it that way all in chapter 1 and chapter 4, and that's totally fine. That's another way. And then you're moving stuff on this side. So you get rid of the plus 4 first, remember, and then your second step is to undo multiply or divide, and that's what the number next to the variable. Okay, so that's just a refresher on the 2-step equation. But the hard part for this was just remembering you had to plug in this value 12 into the y, not the x. It's different than 9 and 10. So I want you to now pause the video. I actually set the work up for you, so you just need to do the 2-step equation and solve for number 11.